Hazur is the classical question. Whenever Hazur comes back from a tour, we would like, if possible, Hazur shares with us the most important events.
Yes. Oh, yes. This is very classical, eh?
Yes.
It's not classical, it's become traditional question.
Okay.
Huh? Classical is something else. You know?
Okay.
Now, I went along with my entourage to Sweden. No, I'm sorry, Norway. But we went via Holland, Belgium, Germany, your country, and all the way throughout Germany to Kiel. And from there we took the boat for Sweden, for Gothenburg. It's a long way off, so it took around 14 hours for the ship to arrive. The ship was excellent. It had 11 floors, and the people were good. Only at night they drink too much. You know, in the beginning everybody was calm and everybody was very careful not to make noise, not to disturb others, you know, walking quietly and with soft steps. And as the night deepened, the noise and roars, you know, became boisterous and, you know, uncontrollable. So people started dancing in the open spaces and making halla gula and inviting others to come and join. So despite the fact that we had our doors very tightly closed, still there was nowhere you could escape that noise. So fortunately, at the time of Tahajjud, the voices died down. And this is the time for the worldly people to sleep. So God has organized animals like this, you know. Some are night birds, some are early birds who wake up at Tahajjud time. And the night birds go to sleep and they wake up and take over. So later on, about 9ish or so, they also started, you know, yawning and getting up and trying to fight their headaches, which is always the aftermath of overmuch drinking. But as far as I'm concerned, I was so happy that I was given a room, which was in a corner where normally such rowdy people don't come and they don't accommodate them there. So this is called a special cabin, which is generally kept for such people who like to have a sober life and separate. So it was silent, it was beautiful, it was, you know, bouquets of flowers were there and everything. So it gave me good time to do some of the workload which I couldn't attend here while in England. So some of that I did in my car during my journey. I tried to finish most of the work which remains unattended here. But at night, because the night was long, we boarded the ferry at 5 o'clock in the evening, and next day we disembarked at 9 o'clock. So between 5 and 9, you see, the long time, and most of it I used for doing my work and reducing the size of the pile which I had carried with me. So it was a good night spent. Next morning we immediately left for Norway, because the program was not to stop over in Sweden. Only some of the representatives of the Jamaat had come there, and they had expressed their desire that they should have a breakfast for us. I told them we won't have time to stop over for breakfast, and 9 o'clock will be a long time, you know, a lot of time for us. to wait for breakfast, disembark and then have breakfast. So they said, no, we will have the breakfast and you better stop over on the way to Norway. So they prepared excellent breakfast, I must say. Tea particularly, which is my weakness, was just the right thing. So well prepared, and everything else was so good that I could see the faces of my companions, they were bursting with joy of having an excellent breakfast. When you are late for breakfast, like you are always, aren't you? A good breakfast is most welcome. The place where we stopped over was near a petrol pump, which was selected before by the people who had come from Norway to take us back to Norway, to pilot us to the mosque. And on the way they had been looking for the nice place. So they selected that petrol pump, and I found it to be an excellent spot to stop over and have a breakfast. They had a beautiful park there for children, seesaw and all sorts of games. And flower arrangements were just wonderful. It was a very cold morning, but the hot tea and the delicious tea warmed up us very quickly. And we enjoyed that best breakfast about half an hour, and then had a good walk around. And afterwards, after filling the cars with petrol, we left for Norway. Reached there I think about 2.5 hours from that, in good time for lunch. And from then on, my work started. They had very intelligently planned the whole program so that I am not left without work even for a minute. Very wisely, I must say. Only they provided me this Kailula time. That is because I always insist. I said, the Quran has permitted us, why shouldn't we avail of it? And this is a good policy, even if you wake up the whole night, because I had almost remained awake the previous night, almost the whole night. So I don't feel it if I have a small break after the lunch. Even half an hour or so is quite sufficient. So for that, they were guilty of providing me that, break. Otherwise, they made no mistake. It was a wonderfully busy day. From the morning till late at night, we had so many meetings with children, with research group, with that group, and the family mulaqat was interminable. And then the visitors from outside, the Norwegian intelligentsia, Norwegian representatives of the different parties in the government. And the highlight of this contact with the Norwegians was a tea party. It was not a regular tea party, but it was after dinner meeting. Normally we serve the dinner to the guests, like in Germany, it used to happen. But in Norway, they have a habit of having rather early dinner, at around 5 o'clock. So they have a good breakfast and then perhaps miss the lunch altogether or have a snack. So after returning from offices, they don't wait very long for the dinner to be served. They have a heavy dinner served at about 5 o'clock when they return, or 5:30, maybe 6. But afterwards they feel free. Then they spend the rest of the night for social activities, for visiting each other and things. And normally their nights end up in pubs. So we had the time between 6 and their pub time, which was around 10 o'clock. So from that, within that period, we have a very long session. And that session was extremely well attended. All the important political parties were represented. The Prime Minister's office was represented by a special high official, and each party sent their official representative, who were also the members of the House of Parliament, but they were specially sent to show their respect and appreciation of my visit. So I was overwhelmed with this gracious, gesture of the Norwegian people, because we don't have a very large presence there. In Germany it's a different story, as you know, but in Norway it's a small presence, say around 900 or so Ahmadis. So for a very small community like this to have made such impact was amazing. And I was told that by those who had come, that although we didn't know you, but we know the Ahmadis and they have created an excellent impression on us. If this is Islam, then it's very respectable Islam. So they were already well inclined. But some of them came only to inquire certain questions which were bothering them in their political life, as well as religious life, as well as in their interracial relationships. And they made it a point to inquire from me the answers to these possible answers to these problems. So I sat relaxed and free and took my time to explain things. And the response was really most wonderful. They began to nod immediately, and some took some time, but unless they understood the answer, they would not nod. They sit poker faced like this. The moment it began to sink into their mind and hearts, you could see them thawing and melting. And it was an excellent thing to watch them change their views about Islam. Most of the questions were about Islam. But I think I have already given him a very big task of translation. Let him first translate, right? Haven't you noticed he's become expert now, eh? Have you? MashaAllah. Most of the questions related to Islam and largely the misunderstanding created by Islam. One of these questions always relates to the use of sword and force and coercion, as is loudly claimed by many Muslim countries, the ulama and even governments like that of Islam and Libya and so on. But not only that, they also thought that ladies in Islam had no right whatsoever. They were completely deprived of all their fundamental human rights, and they were treated like less than bondage girls, like female slaves. And the impressions created on them by the media, Western media, was so strong that it was difficult to, wipe it clean and then build the true impression, which is Islam, of course. But still, with the grace of Allah, although it took me some time sometimes to first wash it out and then start repainting it into beautiful Islamic colors, but I always did that, and they heard patiently, I must say. The translator was excellent. He was Brother Noor Bolstad. He is a Norwegian Ahmadi who is at present headmaster of a big school. His Norwegian language is excellent. His command of English is also excellent. And he has been an Ahmadi for a long time now, because right from the beginning, once he fell for Ahmadiyyat, he never wavered afterward. He continued to advance in dedication and love. So fortunately we had him as our translator, and I could see the way he translated things were impressing. Sometimes it was perhaps too difficult for him to keep pace, so he made short work of translation here and there. But I immediately noticed I don't know the Norwegian language, but what you have said in English, you can always understand in European languages. It's not difficult. German, I always understand what's being said on my behalf, and if a mistake is made, I always told him, no, I didn't say that. So the same happened with Norwegian. So everybody was amazed at my catching him. I said, no. He said, well, I have to say, sometimes you prepare this, but I have said everything you said. I have not left anything. So I said, gists are all right, but I could also speak in abbreviation, in short terms. But I want to enlarge the subject so that the persons are satisfied. So from then on, he translated it at full length, everything. And mashallah, in every area, the response was well received, well taken. And I succeeded in delivering the message that Islam is a universal religion. It has no territorial ambitions at all whatsoever. Islam is not a politics. Those who presented Islam as politics, they're wrong. They're absolutely, completely outside the pale of Islam as far as the true meaning of Islam is concerned. But Islam should be understood from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the Quran. I said, what of Christianity in the medieval ages? If you try to learn your Christianity from English queens and Spanish queen, Isabella and Ferdinand and her husband, what sort of Christianity that would be? It will be the most horrifying image of Jesus Christ. But we as Muslims are fair-minded. We never blame you for what they did. We never blame Jesus Christ for what they did. What right have you got to blame Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for what these people do, That was my general style, which I built the subject gradually, and when I came to the crux of the matter and finally concluded, then they realized what I was saying and why I was building all this. And suddenly they said, yes, you're right, absolutely. Nobody has a right to claim, to censure Islam, to blame it for anything which people of the later ages do in the name of Islam. They're not authorized. So then I told them why they are not authorized. I quoted from the Quran, from the Hadith, from the style of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I said, whatever verses have been quoted by these so-called despotic people who, according to you, crush women's rights and keep them as slave girls under them, I say, were these verses revealed to them directly from God, by God, or were they revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Obviously they were revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Did he fail to understand those verses while these mullahs, after 1300 years, have started understanding them? This was, what completely cracked their resistance, mental resistance. They thought, yes, you're right. I said, the way Rasulullah treated his wives throughout his life, didn't raise a little finger against any of his wives, despite the fact that they gave him cause to be offended repeatedly. So much so that Allah once permitted him to divorce them, all of them. Allah will give you more, Allah said to him. And none of them left him because they knew he was the perfect husband. And yet he lived with whatever they did. And didn't he understand the meaning of the Quran, that you start beating them right and left and smashing their faces with your fists and so on? He understood. And that is the only meaning I know of the Quran which he knew. The Mullah's Quran I don't believe in. Their interpretation is absolutely false. They attribute their own vicious thinking, they attribute their own arrogant behavior to God and to Rasulullah. They have no right to do it. Now, having taken up the subject like this, building it bit by bit, logically, with reference to the Quran and Hadith, naturally they had to be impressed. There was no way out. And each of them, even the ladies who were most vocal in the beginning, they started nodding in the affirmative and smiling and saying, signaling to me, oh yes, you absolutely, we understand now. So that is in fact what made me so happy, because this was the purpose of my visit, to remove misunderstanding about Islam and to bring them closer to Islam and so on. So with the grace of Allah, from one question to another, we spent the full time which was allotted, or almost full time. Afterwards I saw people, some of them who had come to expect the meeting to last for an hour and a half. This is the maximum they are used to. But if for a meeting to go beyond 3 hours is something they couldn't even dream. For them to remain, fixed there for so long, it was amazing. But I could see signs. Some people stood up and apologized, showing that they had an appointment. Some people stood up and apologized, showing from their faces they were dying to have liquor, It's too long without alcohol, So that sort of thing. So then I announced it that I know it's although I'm enjoying every minute of this discussion, but I know some of you have to leave and they feel awkward if we remain sitting and they have to leave. So when a few people left, then I called it a day and then we all parted company as friends. I was amazed to receive messages from some very high officials and parliamentarians that they must come to meet me because they want to ask some other questions. And they insisted that they will not accept no for that. So of course I had to cut out some internal appointments which belong to the internal matters of the Jamaat for their sake. And we had good long meetings. With the grace of Allah, that the questions they raised clarified much in, regarding not only Islam but regarding their own policies. They were interested in my help to make them resolve the national problems they faced. And by the grace of Allah, although I had gone there as a religious leader, but they realized that perhaps because of my habit of truth and assessing things just exactly in the right perspective, I could be of help to them in resolving their own problems. And I was again so deeply surprised to see them express their agreement so openly. They asked questions, and when I answered, they said, yes, you're absolutely right. This is exactly what we're going to do. That sort of thing. And the messages they sent were also very appreciative and most wonderful. So overall, I believe this tour was very well consumed as far as the time goes, and quite productive. Now, I must tell you that they also asked questions regarding the behavior of some of the other Muslims, with which they were not at all satisfied. And during the discussions, I learned certain facts which I was amazed to find, because our Jamaat was not interested at all in what the other Muslim factions are doing and how they earn their money and this and that. So after that also I received some letters informing me of amazing things. Almost all the Muslim organizations depend 100% on the money they receive from Norway government. 100%, no chanda. I was amazed how mosque after mosque and mission after mission is erupting like wild growth, because they benefited, or I should say they exploited some provisions in the Norwegian law that religious communities have a right to survive on the government expense. So all the taxpayers' money was being diverted, not all, but a fraction of the taxpayers' money was being diverted to support this mushroom growth of so-called Orthodox Islam. And the mullahs come from Pakistan and they seek the employment, I don't know by pay much, how much to some experts who deal with this. And when they arrive, they immediately declared Imam of that mosque. And then they are entitled to receive regular salary from the government and the expenses of the mosque, which obviously are not spent all on the mosque. So a lot is saved sensibly for their pockets. So this is why I saw the mullahs, grow quite fat and bulky there. Flourishing, absolutely, in all directions. So this was again something I gained out of knowledge, but they do. And I had to tell them that we are not of those. Then I realized why sometimes when we approached some place, wanted to build some mosque somewhere, the local society reacted so strongly. They did not know what we are. They saw these mullahs and thought we were one of them. So this Christian association gave them an opportunity to understand that we were different. And that also created respect for Islam, that Islam is represented with this noble bearing and noble conduct and behavior in life, which was so impressive to them that they thought they could learn from this Islam. Despite their being so civilized, they told me in so many ways, yes, we can benefit from that. So this is a very small part of what I happen to do. Otherwise, the story, because it is very tightly packed in short time, when you expand it, it's unmanageable within half an hour or so as I had at my disposal this time. Right? Jazakumullah, I think it's time. 1 minute only. Can you ask a question in 5 seconds and give me 55 seconds to answer it? Difficult, eh? So let's have a general talk of how do you do. How do you do?
Alhamdulillah.
When did you return from Palestine?
2 days after Huzur left for Norway.
Is that right? Oh, I wish you had come. You could come with us. Wouldn't you? Visa problem?
No, not visa problem. I have started school again. University.
No, not visa here, but the visa for Norway.
We don't need visa.
You don't require?
No.
The Palestinians don't require visa for Norway. Is that right? Oh, then you should have come earlier. It's a beautiful country. Have you been to Norway? So the most beautiful things in the whole world.
Norway.
Yeah, that's why you remember that?
Yes.
We couldn't cover most of it, but the little we did was amazing. Inshallah, next time I hope. So I hope some of you will be with me. Huh? Shall we, with that, please take leave of them.
سأل حاتم المؤمنين من الأخ عبد الرحمن أنه قد تبقى دقيقة فقط لهذا البرنامج، فهل بإمكانك أن تسأل سؤال في 5 ثواني فقط ثم تعطيني الفرصة ل 55 ثانية كي أجيب عليه؟ فبطبيعة الحال قال الأخ عبد الرحمن لا أستطيع أن أقوم بذلك. ثم سأل حضرته الأخ منير عودة كيف حاله ومتى وصل إلى بريطانيا مرة أخرى، وأجاب الأخ منير عودة أنه وصل يومين بعد أن غادر حضرته إلى النرويج، وذكر حضرته نقاط حول هذه الرحلة وقال أن النرويج دولة جميلة جدا وأبدي بسروري إذا ترافقوني إن شاء الله في المستقبل. هكذا نأتي إلى نهاية هذه الحلقة، إلى أن يجمعنا الله بكم سبحانه وتعالى في فرصة مقبلة. نستودعكم الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، وشكرا على حسن المتابعة.
والسلام عليكم.